Good morning, Reed. I'm Judith
Morning.
Stefano, and I'm a volunteer with our OLLI here in Northwest Arkansas, connected to the University of Arkansas. And it's my pleasure this morning to interview you about the class that you will be doing for OLLI on Wednesday, May 25th at 10 a.m. on Zoom. And the title of the class is A Virtual Tour of MAPS Air Museum, where history takes flight. So I have here everyone, retired Colonel Reed Kimball. And Reed, tell us what your role is at the museum.
I am the Director of Education at the MAPS Air Museum. So I handle all the tour guides, the tours, and the educational programs.
And how'd you get into that?
Well, after I got out of the service after 23 years, I became a school teacher. And I taught everybody's favorite subjects, chemistry and physics. And I was still in the Army Reserve, and my battalion that I commanded got called up for Desert Storm. And by the time I got back, they'd obviously had to replace my teaching position. So I became the assistant principal of the school and ultimately the principal. We moved back here to Akron when my father-in-law passed to be closer to my wife's mother. And I went to an air show at the MAPS Air Museum about 12 years ago and fell in love with the place. And 2 years after I joined as a volunteer, they hired me as the Director of Education.
Terrific. That's a great story. And thank you for your service.
Yeah.
How about telling us a little bit about the museum, its history, and its intent?
Okay. To do that, we have to work around a little bit and give you a little background, because the concept of history is one that eludes many people, especially the young. They have not yet had the life experiences that we have that would cause them to value the study and the lessons learned by those that came before us. Of course, our parents probably felt the same way about us, but we won't go there. In 1905, a Harvard-educated American philosopher wrote a 5-volume work called The Life of Reason. In the first volume, titled Reason and Common Sense, he made a very profound argument for why the study of history is important, even in today's highly complex world. On page 284 of the work, he wrote this statement: "Those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it." Now, that statement, which is actually posted over the entry to the aircraft hangar, is the focal point of what we are attempting to provide, that we should not be learning about history, we should be learning from history. Now, hidden in Summit County, Ohio, in the city of Greene, is one of the best kept secrets in the Akron-Canton area, unfortunately, a small museum known officially as the Military Aviation Preservation Society Air Museum, or MAPS for short. The museum was founded by 14 aviation enthusiasts and 1 aircraft in 1990. It is a nonprofit organization dedicated to educating the public about history, particularly aviation history, and its impact upon society. Now, it accomplishes that mission by acquiring, preserving, studying, exhibiting historical artifacts and aircraft in order to protect and pass on that history and its impacts on the culture of man. History, however, was not made by airplanes. It was made by the men and women who designed, built, and flew them. Okay. Since 1990, the museum has grown extensively, since those original 14 members started taking notes on a napkin in a local restaurant. Today, MAPS have over 780 memberships, or over 1,100 memberships or members. 264 of those members volunteer at the museum. And in 2019, before COVID slowed us down, they logged over 58,000 volunteer hours, or 38 full-time positions. We currently have 56 aircraft on display or in various stages of restoration, and over 100 historical displays of artifacts and memorabilia in 2, soon to be 8 display rooms. Okay. With education being the central part of the MAPS mission statement, the museum focuses much of its efforts on providing hands-on exposure, particularly to kids, that truly brings history to life, which is the focal, or basically the mission statement of the museum. What I hope to offer in the class is some of that experience without actually coming up to Ohio and visiting the museum.
So will you be touring around the museum and showing us things?
I will have videos basically in a PowerPoint presentation and clips and pictures in a PowerPoint presentation, and I'll be narrating it as we go along. You know, basically a lot of our airplanes are outside, so it'd be about a mile walk out there.
Okay, and can you give us a little tease on maybe something you'll tell us?
Okay. I'm going to primarily focus on 3 topics during my presentation: the aircraft, the people, and the stories. Now, I can't hope to give you an introduction to all of the aircraft in our collection. I will highlight just a few. Now, keep in mind, from our perspective, these aircraft are not just collections of parts. They're more than just airplanes. Each has its own story, its own history to tell. From an aircraft that was built by a local farmer in 1908, 5 years after the Wright brothers' first flight, to a World War II B-26 Marauder bomber, one of 7 left in the world today, that crashed in Canada in 1942, to a F-4 Phantom that saw combat duty in Vietnam and was flown by a local pilot 3 days before he was lost on a mission over the Gulf of Tonkin. I will introduce you to 3 former members of the Maps Air Museum. They were my mentors at the museum. They also served as tour guides. Now you can imagine the stories they will tell, or they would have told. All 3 were World War II combat pilots. And about 70% of the volunteers here are veterans. The final section of the presentation will tell some of the stories behind our displays. Now, our display room contains displays honoring a number of Ohio residents that were awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. We actually have 7 of the Medals of Honor here, and I'll go over a couple of those displays. We will describe our Pearl Harbor display containing a piece of the superstructure of the battleship USAR Sarasota, sunk at Pearl Harbor. Because of that one display, we are actually classified as a war memorial. We'll also talk about a local man who was shot down on a mission over Germany in World War II, and a piece of artwork that he drew after the war as a result of those experiences. You'll be introduced to a former Columbus, Ohio resident, a conscientious objector who was drafted during the war in Vietnam, served as a combat medic in Vietnam, and who was one of those young men awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. And finally, and this is one of my favorite stories, I will introduce you to a young lady from Canton, Ohio, who served as an Army nurse in Vietnam and was killed when her hospital was attacked by Viet Cong rockets. She was the first and only female combat casualty killed by direct enemy fire in the war in Vietnam. So those are the types of things that I'll be introducing to. There's more, obviously, but those are basically the 3 topics that we will cover.
Sounds fascinating. And I think I need to tell our viewers that your museum is in Ohio.
It's in Ohio. Yep.
It is in Ohio, and you have graciously accepted our invitation to Zoom in for our OLLI members to share the excitement of your museum with us. And we so truly appreciate it. So
It's my
again,
pleasure.
let me remind everybody, it's a Zoom presentation, Wednesday, May 25th at 10 a.m. And you can consult your catalog and sign right up, because this is going to be one exciting, historical, and moving event. Thank you so much, Reed. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for your service to our country. And thank you for zooming in to OLLI on May 25th.
My pleasure.